I am doing my reassessment on Standard 4 for Kinematics in Chapter 4, number 72. In this question, they're telling me that an African swallow is carrying a very small coconut flying horizontally with a speed of 18 meters per second. And it says if it drops the coconut from the height of 10 meters above Earth, how long will it take for the coconut to strike the ground, and at the horizontal distance from the and at what horizontal distance from the release point will the coconut strike the ground? So it's asking me for the final distance, which is x2, and it's asking me for the time that it will hit the ground. So I would say that would be my final time. And I have drawn the crow carrying the coconut, and it's going to drop the coconut down on Earth 10 meters above. So anything that is free fall is a projectile motion. Projectile motion problem. For these kind of problems, I would have to find the x motion and the y motion. In the x motion for acceleration, since it is free falling downwards, is not accelerating in x direction, therefore acceleration is 0. The velocity which the bird was traveling was 18 meters per second. I don't know the time, and the initial of x, I would say 0. And I'm looking for x2. For the y motion, is falling down, going in y direction, at acceleration of negative 9.81 meters per second squared. My velocity, my initial velocity, I would say when the bird is holding that rock is not moving downward, so I would say that is 0 meters per second. I still don't know the time. The initial, which is when the bird was flying above 10 meters above the Earth. And then I have when it hits the ground, it will be 0. Y would be 0. And then for me to find the final x, I would have to use this equation. x2 equals x1 plus initial velocity times time plus 1/2 times acceleration times time squared. So for this equation, I don't know x, and I don't know the time. I don't know the x, and I don't know the time. So I'm going to go over to the y. y2 equals y1 plus initial velocity times time plus 1/2 acceleration times time squared. I know my y2 and I know my y1. I know my initial velocity for the y direction. I still don't know the time, but I do know the acceleration, so I can plug it all in and solve for t. So I plugged all my numbers in, and since 0 times t equals 0, I just took that part out. So this is the numbers when I plugged it in, solved for t, had to square root down, and then finally I got t when it hits, the time it took for the coconut to hit the ground was 2.04 seconds. And since I have the time now, I can go up here and I can solve for x. In this case, since acceleration is 0, this whole part right here will be omitted. For the initial x, I have 0. So I put 0, and then I know my initial velocity was 18 meters per second. My time that I just found is 2.04 seconds. And then I just multiply those that are left together, and I got my final distance that the coconut hit the ground from the bird was 36.72 meters. And there I have found the time that it took for the coconut to strike the ground and the horizontal distance from the release point that the coconut strike the ground. And that's it.